John. Yeah, the sponsor of today's video is AudioQuest. Click the link in the description box below. Bye.
So welcome to the second of 3 videos about entry-level DACs. And if you're watching this video for anything other than just pure entertainment, I know that's hard to believe given the way I look, but if that's the case, please wait until all 3 videos are online before you go and spend any money on a new DAC. In the last video, we looked at the Audiophile ZEN DAC. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Cambridge DacMagic 200M. Now, my very first external DAC was the Cambridge DacMagic, and I bought that in 2009. But this is the latest iteration of the DAC Magic series of DACs. There's been about 3 or 4 since 2009. This has 2 ESS DAC chips inside. I don't think Cambridge tell us what they are. That's a good thing because a DAC is more than just its chip. It's the power supply, the analog output stage, also digital filters, things like that. This DAC gives us support for, wait for it, PCM up to 32-bit, 768 kilohertz. We really need that, don't we? I mean, if you're upsampling, yes, but yeah, I think that's just really for bragging rights, if nothing else. This is also Cambridge's first DAC to support MQA, which means it's not an upsampling DAC, because many of their earlier models were upsampling DACs. This one is purely bit perfect from input to output, I would assume. We have a choice of 3 filters on the front, bang, 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 with this button. They don't make a huge amount of difference. I mean, in the literature, it says you can use these according to your, room, but the difference is tiny. We have 3 digital inputs on this, USB and SPDIF, but they appear twice. We have a headphone output. On the back, we have balanced outputs. So if you're a fan of balanced connections, this could be a DAC for you. Oh yeah, and lastly, on the back here, can you see this little aerial? That's not for Wi-Fi, that's for Bluetooth. This supports aptX Bluetooth streaming, which is useful, I think, if your friends pop over or for people that don't want to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of SPDIF and USB. But personally, I don't use Bluetooth inside my house because I think, well, basically because Bluetooth is lossy. No matter which way you skin it, Bluetooth codecs, all of them, including LDAC, including aptX, throw away data. So I prefer to feed my DACs in my house with, in this particular case, a Raspberry Pi 4 running Volumio. That also does Tidal Connect, as we've seen in the previous video. This is not USB powered as the Audiophile is. We need, like, there's a mains power brick somewhere down there, and it comes in the back on a little sort of barrel plug. But yeah, this is a very well featured, let me move the Audiophile out of the way because I don't want that stealing the limelight from this DAC Magic. This is a very well specified DAC. Well specified, broadly featured DAC. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of things you can do with it. Let's talk about knob feel just briefly, because I know I touched on that in the GATO video. This is a bit stiff. It does feel a bit plasticky. For me, it's not as nice as this one. So in terms of sound quality into a high-end loudspeaker system, I find that the DacMagic 200M has similar levels of detail retrieval to the topping, which we saw in the first video, and also this Audiophile ZEN DAC. However, this DacMagic, for me, has more dynamic muscle, more oomph, more punch than this Audiophile, which is contrasted as a little bit polite. Also, the DacMagic has some of the topping's crisp clarity, you know, that top end that kind of just has a nice amount of air bite. Sometimes it can get a little bit too much, which I don't find from the Audiophile, but that will be very much system and taste dependent because that delta is pretty small. But overall, I think with its feature set and with its sound quality, the DAC Magic earns its place as a very decent sounding €500 DAC. Now, back in 2009, when I got my first DAC Magic, there wasn't a lot of competition at that price point. But nowadays, there is plenty of competition at the €500 price point for external DACs. Now, the elephant in the €500 DAC room is this little guy, the Chord Mojo. When people ask me, which DAC should I go for, John, at €500-ish, I always point to this one and also the shit Bifrost or whatever iteration it's in now. I don't have a Bifrost, I do have a Mojo, as you can see. And this came out in 2015 and it's still one of my favorite sounding DACs at €500. There's no Bluetooth here. For that we need the poly, but it does have coax, Toslink, USB, just like the DAC Magic. There is no balanced outputs on this device, but we do have two single-ended outputs. Now I know that this, you know, it's labeled as a headphone socket, but we can run this line level by pushing these two volume buttons when we start it up. That powers it up into line level mode. So we can connect this to a hi-fi system, which is what I've done here. Now, the second USB socket on here is used for recharging this because this is battery powered. But we can put it in a hi-fi system, connect this USB socket to our, in this case, Raspberry Pi. This one can connect to any kind of 5-volt USB source. And then when the battery gets full, it goes into trickle charge mode. And this can stay permanently in a hi-fi system like I have set up here. But because of its battery power, this has the advantage, it doesn't have to be tethered to the wall. So if you want to, you can take this, you know, on a plane or a train or to the office. You can connect it to a phone. It's a more transportable DAC. I wouldn't put this in my pocket connected to my phone. I think it's far too bulky for that. But this is more of a go anywhere DAC than the DAC Magic 200M. But obviously this one's bigger. And I guess, you know, when you look at it, you think, wow, I'm getting more for my money here than I am here. But we need to listen to both side by side to really ascertain whether this DAC Magic 200M, you know, really kind of competes with the Mojo. This week I've been on a bit of a sort of old man music tip, in that I've been playing Robbie Robertson's debut album, which is tremendously well produced and mastered. It sounds fantastic. And also Howie Gelb's The Coincidentalist, can't even say that, The Coincidentalist. That's more of a sort of rough, I don't know, country lounge jazz. Its mastering quality or recording quality varies a bit, but there's some very nice sounding songs on there. So I use mainly those two albums, plus a bit of Square Pusher, just to kind of keep it spicy, to compare the Mojo with the 200M. And I gotta say, I don't think the DAC Magic can compete with the Mojo's detail retrieval or its transparency or clarity. And the difference, it's not night and day, nothing's getting blown out of the water, destroyed or anything like that, but it is noticeable. And I think the Mojo is slightly better with microdynamics as well. Those that are kind of the little sort of changes that you know, when music sort of moves, when you get like a, I don't know, like a snare hit or like a double bass pluck or something like that. The Mojo for me is more impactful in that regard than this Cambridge DAC Magic. And on the tonal color of sort of Howie Gelb's jazz inflected country lounge music, I just find that the chord adds a little bit more sort of gloss. So that contrasts the Cambridge as a bit drier. Put simply, the Cambridge really isn't as engaging or as easeful or as transparent as this tiny little Chord Mojo. And not even, you know, switching the filters here or moving our connection between DAC and amp to balanced could really close that gap, which I also thought was interesting. But where the gap widens is with headphone listening. I mean, I think the headphone output here, it's plenty powerful for even high impedance headphones. And this sort of runs out of steam for me. It just doesn't seem to have the grip or the control over the headphone driver, the way I hear it, as this little guy, which is surprising, right? Because you think, well, there's no way this little thing can compete with that. But yep, it really does. It does sound better. Now, that doesn't mean that this headphone output is terrible. Far from it. It's just fine. It's okay. But again, it's bested by this on the iFi. This as a headphone amplifier, I think, is more accomplished than what Cambridge have done here. And with the iFi, I just get, you know, with the square pusher stuff, just really get more impact and punch from this, and also a richer top end. I was playing some Prefab Sprout, their first album, Swoon, which is excellent. But the original master is a bit thin. I think this iFi is a little bit more generous with that than the Cambridge here. So where does that leave us? Well, in many ways, it leaves us between a rock and a hard place. Because if you want the best featured DAC with the headphone output, the filters, the MQA, the Bluetooth, the balanced outputs, you want the Cambridge. If you want the best bang for buck headphone listening, you want the iFi. But if you want the DAC with the more abundant detail retrieval, greater clarity, and more reflexive dynamics with both headphones and in a loudspeaker system, then you want the Chord Mojo. So don't get me wrong, there's nothing bad per se about this DAC Magic 200M. It's just outclassed by some very, very strong competition. But if this is your first DAC, you're not going to notice that. So yeah, I took on this assignment because I had very fond memories of my original 2009 DAC Magic. That's why I wanted to hear this one. And I haven't reviewed many in between. So I thought this is the one to go for because it's more of a dramatic shift for Cambridge because they've cut over to ESS DAC chips. They've got rid of their upsampling and they've implemented MQA. And the original always had balance, but you know, it's one of those units that I think is very well respected. It has a very strong brand or, you know, DAC sub-brand presence in the market, especially in the UK. But I just think that the competition in the intervening 12 years has really caught up, and then some. If you like this video, please hit the like button down below. If you like my attitude towards high-end audio, in that, as I've said before, not everything can be amazing, not everything can be a winner, not everything can be best. So yeah, if you dig that, then please subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching.